What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast. This is actually episode number 1. This is my first specific podcast that I'm going to be posting on, but I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, as you heard in the intro. I have a very special guest today who's actually helping me out with my first podcast, who's kind of a podcast veteran himself, Mr. Mark Ledlow. And it's kind of funny, Mark and I have quite a history of sorts. So how you doing, Mark?
Great. Thanks for having me on. And a veteran? I've been doing this, 5 months?
More than me. It's great.
Yeah, thanks for the compliment. It's been a fun ride, a fun journey. I learned a lot in this little journey. I think I started recording September, and YouTube finally approved me. They thought I was a fictitious criminal person.
Yeah.
So it took 2 months for my YouTube account to be opened up and cleared.
Oh, well, they got to do a background check on you.
I guess. Yeah, they must do something back there.
So, anyways, like I said, with the What's a Hero podcast, we are. I'm introducing you to people that you didn't realize were heroes in your life. You might see these people walking around. You might see these people just going to the store, being normal people, and not understanding or not realizing that these people are willing to do just about anything for you. Mark is one of those guys. Mark and I met each other, we're going on 26 years ago, I believe, and we kind of have it's kind of a weird thing how we met each other. Do you want to tell a story, or do you want me to tell the story how we met? Well, I'll tell you right now, we're in Oregon, and right now, we did not meet in Oregon.
That's exactly right. How do you know you existed until after boot camp?
Right. We both lived in Oregon. We both went to high school in Oregon. We did the same thing.
Yep.
And we met down in sunny Southern California. So Mark and I, we both joined the United States Marine Corps at the same time. We didn't join together. We didn't know each other beforehand. He goes into MEPS. We were actually MEPS the same day. Didn't even realize each other were there. I think we met each other first day we were on the infamous Yellow Footprints.
That's about right.
MCRD.
You were the tiniest guy there.
I was the shortest guy, not tiniest.
Oh, the shortest. Sorry, shortest.
I'll go shortest. I wasn't tiny. There's that other guy.
Who was that other guy? The long nose. Who was that? He had a hook nose.
Oh, that poor guy.
He had a voice like this.
He was, yes. At the time we were so cruel and mean. That was recruit, private, Mr., whatever you want to call him, Long Crier.
Long Crier.
Long Crier. I mean, it was, hey, if you're listening to this, dude, we honestly, we're not a-holes. We're not jerks. It's just we were dumb kids, and that's all we remember. We have memories of being dumb kids. So,
wow.
If you are listening to this, dude, I'd love to talk with you, see where you're at with life right now, and know that your brother, because you went through the same crap we went through, and you did it. So, and that goes for everybody that was there. But
right.
This is 1994, and it was September 1994. We joined the United States Marine Corps. We were in boot camp together, and after boot camp, to be honest with you, I don't think we saw each other. We had anything to do with each other until easily 2010, 2009, something like that.
Later on.
It was about 2000. Yeah, 2010, 2009 that we saw each other. And what happened, and I'll tell this little story really quick, is that Mark comes in, because I was working at a little little one man. Actually, we had 4 officers on police department, and Mark comes in, and he was wanting to talk to me. He actually talked to anybody because he wanted to get his service record there, right?
River Police Department.
Because you were going to start working for.
Oh yeah, private sector security in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking for my service record showing proof that I was in the reserves.
Right.
And I saw you. You saw me. Go, Ledlow.
So we got to looking, and I remember your face. You looked at me like, "How do I know you?
I know you.
I know you from something." And I'm like, "I know you from something." And sure enough, yeah. Years later, we see each other. We meet each other again, and like, wow, we were in boot camp together. So I mean, it's just small world. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know who's listening to you. You never know who you're affecting in life either. So yeah, we were before we hit record today. We were talking about various stories about boot camp.
Oh yeah, and you have a ton of them because I don't remember many of them because I think I was just trying to get through it, survive, and I told myself in my mind, I'm like, either I'm going to die in a casket and go home, or I'm going to graduate. I made my mind up. There's no way I was quitting for nothing. I didn't care how many times I recycled through the hospital, break a leg, get punched out. Like we saw that one guy get punched out the night before.
Yeah.
He got decked.
Yeah.
Was it Richie?
Oh,
Staff Sergeant Richie.
Oh, my gosh, that guy.
Remember that night?
So Staff Sergeant Richie, this guy, and if you're listening to this, I don't know if you listen to podcasts, but and the awesomeness that it would be if this made its way to you. But this was the toughest man I think I'd ever seen in my life. This guy, he had that grizzled look on his face. I mean, he had those, it looked like almost scarred, looked leathery.
Very leathery.
And I remember he was from Delaware. He was just the toughest guy I've ever seen. And at the end of boot camp, you do a thing called the gong show. You remember that?
The gong.
And so it was the whole, if anybody can
imitate
one of the drill instructors, then get up there and get in front of everybody and do it to their face.
Oh, that was
classic. It was
hilarious.
Amnesty International.
Everybody was rolling, almost peeing their pants.
So I remember I had Staff Sergeant Richie down. I had Staff Sergeant Burrows down. And Cornwell. I had Staff Sergeant Cornwell.
Burrows did the Flintstone cadence.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And but I couldn't get our senior drill instructor, and to be honest with you, I don't remember his name. Do you remember his name?
He quit, didn't he?
No, he was. I think he was doing some kind of transitioning halfway through, and so he was still there, still our senior drill instructor. But then so we got another one just in case.
I remember he broke the guide arm over his knee.
He was an angry fellow.
He got pissed off because we didn't qualify first or whatever it was.
Right.
He was so pissed. He got that pole and snapped it right across his knee.
I
remember that.
He was a very angry man.
He was
but I couldn't imitate him, and so I remember one kid could. And so he did it, but then he got in trouble because they said there's no imitating the senior drill instructor. And so they were like, what? Where was that rule? I don't remember hearing that rule. But I remember Staff Sergeant Richie, and he was, no! And he would just,
he had that finger thing with his hands and his voice.
Yeah, and he'd put his thumb and his finger together.
And
just, tell you right now. You're right. So you got this guy. But I remember we were waiting in line for a class one time.
Right.
I think it was, I don't remember what the class was. We're waiting in line for this class, and when we're waiting in line, we're in the lines of platoons, and I think we were going 2 by 2s. And there was a platoon next to us that was waiting also for this class. Their drill instructor had gone off and was doing something else. They were supposed to just be waiting there. And all of a sudden a fight breaks out in the neighboring platoon's ranks.
I remember that. Yep.
And they're waiting in there, and there was no other drill instructor around but Richie. That guy just goes over, and I don't know if you remember this part, but he walks over there, and he starts going, no! Just doing this whole thing. Nobody's listening to a word he's saying. He starts picking dudes up by one arm and throwing these guys. This guy had, I think he was recon. I think he was.
He was, because I remember the recon.
I have no doubt this guy's killed men before.
No doubt. In his eyes, and we looked at you, it scared you.
He was, yeah. So he starts throwing these kids. And the fight stopped.
Right.
And those kids got reamed when their drill instructors got back, because our drill instructor had to go over and clean them up. And so there's an embarrassment factor. There's the whole thing that you don't do.
Was that the same fight during Chow Hall they had a gang fight going. A gang, it was rival gangs in the boot camp.
Oh, I
remember that?
remember hearing about that. I don't think I saw it though.
Yeah, remember? I think it was during chow time. We were getting off of chow, going back to somewhere, and 2 different platoons went at each other.
Really?
And it was a rival gang fight.
Because these 2 dudes used to be gangbangers.
Yep.
From rival gangs back in the day, and they saw each other or something like that.
And they just went ape.
They joined in the military.
They lost it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I remember all these MPs flying from out of the wall, the air, parachuting down with 4th Street Con and breaking these guys. It was bad. They had bands coming to pick these guys up and haul them over to Fort Leavenworth, I think. It was bad.
Well, no, then it wasn't in. I remember hearing about it, but it wasn't in. It must have been at a duty station. It wasn't in boot camp. Because I didn't see it or have any part of that. But I'd heard about it. You know, it's not something you don't hear about. You know,
I remember the fight though. I remember seeing people swinging and drill instructor trying to. I think I saw Richie bricking those guys up. The bodies going flying everywhere.
Yeah.
But I remember him knocking out that one tall guy that was 6'5". He was like professing a Satan worshiper or whatever.
Really?
He was all mouthy all the time. And he goes, oh, you're out of POA. And he took off his Smokey the Bear hat or his drill instructor cover.
Campaign cover, right.
He hops on the guy's footlocker and he jumps in the air. And I just saw his forward fist going flying in the air and knock the guy out. He fell flat on his back. Do you remember that? I was like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah, that guy had to be easily one of the toughest men I've ever met in my life. I have no doubt about it. So then there was Staff Sergeant Burrows. He couldn't be more than 5'8", 5'9", skinny guy from down south. And Alabama, I think he said he was from.
South. He had that southern accent.
Yeah. But his thing was he would stand there and he kind of a little pigeon-toed, but he would put his fingers and his thumb together. And he'd sit there and I tell you right now, boy, you done pissed me off. And he would be so subtle and be, you better get over there right now before I break your face. You better get in on there. And he wasn't much of a yeller. No. But he'd get real close to you and do the whole whispery thing, and I'm going to kill you. And and so, I mean, people moved, you know, but he was near the end, you know, obviously they got to be mean, but by the end, he was probably favorite drill instructor between he and Richie for me. So
yeah, Richie was the meanest guy there. But I remember this right after boot camp, we were released, and we did about face, and we were free. He was the first guy that come up to me and shook my hand and said, "Mark Ledlow, I knew you could do it."
Wow.
I was like, "Put her there, Marine." I'm like,
wow,
this guy's nice.
Yeah.
He's not gonna rip my throat out.
Yeah, I never got a chance to go talk to him. I talked to Cornwell, and he was like, see, and it was just like, I told you. Yeah, I was just saying thank you. I know. I'm not. I thought I was a Marine. Now I'm not. I'm not better. So, but
wow.
No, there was there's times that you get. I remember one specifically. We're all lined up in barracks, and we're on line, and they got to yelling at you for whatever reason, and they would pick guys,
right.
So everybody understands. They didn't. I'm finding Mark Ledlow, and I'm going after him every time.
It's random.
It was just random.
Right.
If it was your day, it was your day.
It was your day. They're all over you like bees on honey.
Right. It's like that sign. It says, "Hey, I can't please everybody every day. Today's not your day. It doesn't look like tomorrow's going to be that day either."
It's going south quick.
Well, we can't pick on everybody every day. Today's not your day.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow. And it could have been this 5 minutes. The next 5 minutes is somebody else, and they just picked somebody else. Well, I remember they picked you one time, and they were walking down the line, and they yelled at you, did something, and they kept going, and I guess you rolled your eyes or you did something. Whatever, freaking guys. And they stopped. "Oh, you're going to roll your eyes at me? What do you think you're doing?" You know, and then all of a sudden, if one catches on, it just like these other drill instructors from out of nowhere just come around, and they go right after you. So it's kind of funny that you got those stories.
What did I roll my eyes about? Because I was always laughing. It seemed like I always like holding the laughter back. I was like, yeah, we're just getting through the motions of boot camp here. But I was always pushing on the quarterdeck. I remember being on the quarterback half the time of boot camp, pushing or whatever I was doing.
Right.
Full
no.
sweat.
Yeah, it was. It was something they told you something. I think they said something like, "Oh, you got a college degree, because you were 23, 22 when you went in, right?"
23. Yeah.
Right, so you were older than the rest of us. We were 18, 19 kids.
I had an
year old
associate
kids.
degree.
Yeah, and so you had gone to college. You had a degree, all this different stuff. Like, oh, you think you're smarter than everybody because you got a freaking degree? You're nothing. You understand that? And they turn around, and that's when I think you rolled your eyes. And, you could hear the brakes just go on their feet. They about face.
They hated me.
They get right in your business.
You need to be honor guard. You need to be this. I mean, Barrow's like, Ledlow, you have so much potential. You go, why don't you just rise up? Like, Staff Sergeant, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guide. I don't want the abuse.
Right.
Screw that.
Yeah.
You try to get through here easy, aren't you? You don't want anybody to notice you. That's what you're doing, aren't you? Like, yes, Staff Sergeant, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah,
He goes, you're too smart for your own good.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, Staff Sergeant, I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, there was that one guy who was our guide.
Yeah.
Was it Coletti? No.
Coletti.
Was it Coletti?
Yep. Coletti,
Yeah.
the short guy.
Yeah, he wasn't overly tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a wrestler, wasn't he?
Yeah, from like Wyoming or something like that.
He was a rugged cowboy.
Yeah.
I remember that guy. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I can start picking out names for you that I remember. I remember tons of names like Cable. I don't know if you remember Cable.
Cable.
He was cool. He and I got along really well. There's a guy. He's actually lives up north here from where we're at.
Okay.
Chris Hurst.
Hurst. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Hurst.
I've seen him on Facebook or whatever, but he's a top-notch guy. I mean, he's got a daughter. He's freaking dotes over. He loves her. I mean, great guy.
Wow.
Let me see. And then there's Ives.
Ives. Yep. I remember that name.
So remember this guy, right?
Yeah.
Remember. So the thing that they did in boot camp,
Right.
was they say eyeballs,
Click.
clicks her, and ears
Open.
right? So you got this whole thing. So it was that mass group that replies every time, and so when they get in there, there was the guy his name was Ives.
Yeah.
So they would get up there and be like, Ives! And everyone's like, Clixer! And he's like, Ives! Clixer! He's like, shut up! Ives! Clixer! Shut up! Not that's what I'm talking about. What the kid? Where's the kid, Ives? No. And they're like, oh, he's saying Ives, not eyes. Oh, okay. Makes sense now.
Shut up, Richard. Shut up. Lock your jaw.
Yeah,
Lock
that's
your
right.
jaw.
The funniest thing, though, I tell you, the funniest thing that happened was we were with our drill instructors had to go to a meeting or something. I don't remember what it was, and so we got some substitute drill instructor. We didn't know his name, or we had gone to another platoon, and they had switched. Something happened where we had this other drill instructor that was kind of standing over us, and we're all sitting down
Right.
in the kind of the squad bay area, and and we're sitting there, and he's kind of going over something, and somebody just rips this fart, just right, and he stops in his track. He goes, "Who just said their name? Who just said that?" And so nobody's copping to it. He goes, "Who just said their name? I want to know." And so, oh man. I was dying laughing, but you couldn't laugh. You had to just bottle that up, and I was dying. He walks out of the room, and we were dying laughing. So, I mean, that happened a bunch because you can't laugh. We're not allowed to laugh. You're not allowed to. You're supposed to be all. So, what are you smiling about? You got something? You planning something? You scheming something? Whatever. So that wasn't the thing. So what we do is, there was one time that drill instructors were just making the jokes, and they were trying to get us to laugh so they can yell at us. And I remember Burroughs, he was funnier than crap.
He was hilarious.
He's up front. He's sitting there making fun of everybody. Maybe, there's that kid. Who was that kid that he had a scar on his head, so his head looked like he had a extra lump on his head, but it was like from when he was born or whatever. Right? And so he's sitting there making fun of him. He's doing all these different things. And we got that new drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Maldonado.
Oh, yeah. I remember him.
Remember him?
Yeah.
And he's standing in the back. I think he was brand new out of drill instructor school or whatever, and he's watching. And he just starts losing it. I mean, he is doing everything he can not to laugh. And you see him just slam into the duty hut and just close the door behind him. But he's holding his face, trying not to laugh. And so, but if we're not allowed to laugh, he's especially not allowed to laugh. So
wow, you got a good memory for all those stories.
Oh, I can keep going because there was one where we were. Well, they heard that I could mimic them pretty well.
Oh yeah, they did hear that. They wanted to.
And
they wanted to see it act.
And they want to see it in action, right?
They
So
want to see you do your thing.
So during free time, which we had about an hour every night, well, most nights, we had about an hour a night to do, your go to the bathroom, shower, shave, and clip your nails, write your letters home, all that stuff like that. So then we were there, and then all of a sudden I hear somebody say, "Recruit Frownfelter." And so when you hear your name, what do? You pop up, "Yes, sir." And then they had somebody else say, "Call my name." So I had to go running up there. "Drill instructors want to see you." And so you walk in there and you go into the duty hut. And so when you walk in the duty hut, you have their desk, and you go around this little corner, and you have their racks. So you have a bunk bed there, and then the bathroom right around the corner. And so they're sitting. They got 2 drill instructors sitting on the bottom bunk, and one standing in the doorway of the bathroom, and their arms are crossed, and they're just pile of junk food, candy bars, bags of chips, soda pop, all this different stuff sitting on the rack, and they're sitting there. "So I hear you can mimic us pretty well."
You're busted.
And they, like I said, there's just candy everywhere, and I don't know what the deal was. Whether they were trying to no drill instructor, no sir, no, I want to hear it.
You're so screwed.
No, because it's just me and those 3, right? And
you're so screwed.
And I'm like, oh, and I keep like looking down at the Snicker bar or whatever, and they're like, "You like candy? What are you looking at my candy? Why are you looking at my candy?" I think it's just to hey, I got candy. You can't have any of it because you couldn't have 3 months. Nothing. And so when we got M&Ms in our MREs, you had to hand those in. Yeah.
I was smuggling candy into the boot camp, right?
Were you?
Yep.
Were you didn't you get packages from your mom or something like that with cookies and things like that?
Oh yeah.
And you had to share.
I had to share. They caught me. The first round they caught me. Second round, I had a girlfriend from Grants Pass. She sent me ESPN magazines. I told her to tape the candy in between the pages. So when the drill instructors went through the pages of the ESPN magazine, it wouldn't flop out.
Right.
It worked.
Well, what kind of candy? Not like
M&Ms and cookies.
Oh, like stuff that can be flattened down. Okay.
Yeah, so she flattened it down and she taped it in between the pages with Scotch tape. So when they opened it, nothing came out. And they said, "Here you go, Ledlow." And then I waited till everybody go to bed. I had a feast. I just had a feast. And then all these recruits come, "Ledlow, I'm going to tell on you if you don't give me a piece."
Right, yeah.
So all these diet recruits were coming to my rack wanting dessert.
So what's a diet recruit for those that may not know?
A diet recruit is a sucky life. You cannot eat carbs. All you get is protein and a veggie. Did
you get touted as a diet recruit at one point?
Yeah, I was the whole time.
Yeah?
I went in weighing 230.
How much did you lose?
40 pounds.
Even with all the candy, huh?
All the candy, I came out at 187.
Wow.
45 pounds of weight loss.
Wow.
And then remember mess duty, I wanted sugar so bad. The cookie dough, that was my saving grace.
Really?
They wanted to know, they found out my weight went up 15 pounds in 1 week.
Jeez.
So I was eating cookie dough from the mess hall when we had mess hall duty that week.
Oh, I remember they're like, "What is going on?"
Remember that?
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out what was going on with my weight.
Yeah.
And then they put me on the quarter deck, and they bent the crap out of me for a week because my weight went up. And I said, "You're eating cookie dough." "No, sir."
"No, sir.
No,
yes,
sir.
Well, I really am, but no, yeah."
No. I denied it. And they kept on pushing me. But it was so good. It tasted so well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many different things that we could, we can go back and look at the different stories on, and we can sit there and say, hey, that was a great time. It was, as much as we say, I don't want to, gosh, I would never want to do that again. Or I hated it. Like you said, I hated it. I want to be out of it. I remember having dreams afterwards, long afterwards.
Really?
Having dreams of getting back in the military, getting back in the Marine Corps. But I was like, "Oh, I have to go back through boot camp?" "Yep, you got to go back through boot camp." I'm like, "No," because at that point I had littles, I had kiddos, and I was married and all this different stuff. and I didn't want to leave them for 3 months.
Right.
3 months when you got babies, that's a long
Exactly.
time for their life, right? So
Yeah.
I was like, so I'd had dreams of being back in boot camp and just being like, oh, I can't believe this. And then all of a sudden I'm graduating. Oh, it's over already? Okay, but I just remember having those dreams and waking up and being like, I don't want to go back through it. I don't mind being back in the Marines or in the military or whatever, but I don't want to go through boot camp. It's just
Were you missing the challenge of boot camp after you got out? Or were you wanting to relive it and do things differently?
No, I think it was just I didn't want to. I didn't want to be away from my family in boot camp. Now,
Right.
if I got deployed, yeah, I would have had to. It doesn't. That is what it is. But after I was out, I didn't have that. It wasn't a reality. That was an option to be gone. Because I had never been gone from my children's life up to the point where I was having these dreams.
That makes sense.
It was just not wanting to be gone from my family
Okay.
for that period of time.
Sure.
I can't even call them. I can't text them. I can't do anything like that. But then again, I'm a young guy.
Right.
So
To this day, I can say I never had one dream while in boot camp.
Oh, really?
Not one. It was weird. Everybody else is freaking out. I wake up 3 a.m. Everybody's just having convulsions and shaking and sweating.
Yeah.
I remember. I checked out and I just pretended I was with my girlfriend at the time, hanging out watching a movie, and then I was out. And the next thing you know, I wake up 10 minutes before Reveille.
Yeah.
And
except for those nights that you had to do fire watch.
oh yeah, and then you wake up in the middle of the night. But
Those were unawesome.
I never had any nightmares. Everybody else had nightmares.
Yeah, I remember guys waking up just screaming and
Like
hitting the
what
bed and wetting the bed. There was guys that were doing
Oh,
that.
remember that? The guys wouldn't take a shower.
Yeah.
They had a pillow party on them or a blanket party on them.
Yeah. Yes. It's amazing. There's the people that you meet in there from all walks of life,
Right.
all over the country.
Yeah.
And they have different hygiene theories. There's some people that are overly clean, some people that are underly clean. I guess they make up for each other.
Right.
There's people that just look at things a certain way. There's one guy. I remember we were cleaning the drains. Sorry about that. I bumped my mic. There was we were cleaning drains near the last week or whatever, and we got to the point where I want the drains clean, and we had coat hangers straightened out, and we're digging in there. Well, we were getting brown things out of there. It was just gross, and people are, oh, this is gross, oh, nasty. Until this one kid, and I'm sorry, this is kind of explicit. This one kid, he picks his nose and pulls out this giant booger, and that was the most disgusting thing. While we were doing that, I could handle cleaning out the drains and doing all that stuff. But that booger, and everybody's just over there gagging. They're doing this whole retching thing.
Retching. Losing their stomach over a booger. That's pretty weak stomachs for Marines.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, but
Yeah.
I
A lot of memories.
yeah.
Yeah, I never had any dreams. I got lots of letters from my girlfriend, lots of candy, lots of M&Ms.
Yeah.
Taped in between ESPN magazine pages, and never got caught, I don't think.
Yeah.
And then I remember the pillow party that went down a couple nights before graduation. One guy got beat up pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I think the worst thing that there's guys that would have the breakdowns, and they would have their
true, yeah.
they would just be you see them crying over on their bed or whatever, and you're like, you okay? I just because it's the first time being away from home, and everything's fresh, and you're getting tearing that Band-Aid away. And mine came when I got a letter from my dad that said that I had been getting letters from my great grandpa, and I actually still have some of them.
Oh wow.
And he'd write, say, hey, and he had this really nice handwriting, especially for 94.
Right, that's pretty good.
And so I get a letter. I don't know. We were in phase 2, so we were up at Camp Pendleton.
Right.
And I got a letter from my dad saying that my great grandpa had passed away. And I'm like, okay. And so I go and sit on my rack, and so Hurst comes up to me, and he goes, "Hey, you doing okay?" Because he had the bunk right next to me, but the lower level bunk. And so he sits across from me. He's like, "You okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I just got a letter from my dad. My great grandpa passed away, and I don't know what it was. I think it was just I'd been holding it together, and it just I just lost it at that point.
Let the floodgates open up.
Yep, and he puts his arm on my shoulder.
Oh wow.
And he's just like, I'm sorry, man. And the whole thing. Well, I think Richie saw this at some point. Somehow either walked past or whatever the case was.
He saw it.
So this was during free time that this happened. And so they get us online afterwards. At the end of free time, we're getting ready to hit the rack. And Richie's doing his inspection, going down the line, and he stops at me. He goes, "You okay?" I said, I think this was like a night before or night later or 2 nights later or whatever. He goes, "You okay?" I said, "Drill instructor, this recruit doesn't understand what you're asking, what the drill instructor's asking. Because you got to be all..."
Yeah, right.
how you're saying it. He goes, "I saw you breaking down the other day. You okay? I've never seen you break down before." And I said, "I just received some news from my dad. I'm fine though." And my dad had sent me the letter after the funeral, after all the stuff, because he knew that if I had gone, if it was one of those things that I could get out of boot camp to go deal with,
right?
And he knew that was not going to be beneficial for me. That if I went through that stuff, it wasn't going to be beneficial for me. He goes, "There's nothing you can do. Yes, you can be sad, but you can have a memorial. We'll go to his gravesite after you get out and all this different stuff."
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, great." But Richie had come up to me. He goes, "You okay?" And I said, "I just got some news from my dad. Do you need some time?" "No, drill instructor, I'm doing okay." Or "This recruit's doing okay." He said, "All right, let me know."
Wow.
And that was it. And then he just moved on. And he never brought it up again. I never brought it up again. I was doing okay. But it was a weird thing that
he sensed.
Yeah. Whether he saw it or whatever it was, I didn't think that I put out the airs of being bummed out or whatever, but
he showed you some sympathy.
Yeah.
He showed you that he's human.
Yeah.
And he identified with, he knew you lost somebody.
Right.
He just knew.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. This toughest guy I've ever met in my life. And I think even to this day.
Oh, absolutely.
That's still probably one of the toughest guys I've ever met in my life.
He was, 30 then?
He had to be about 30 at that time. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, you think about it. He looked older than that, though.
He did. He was at least 35, 40 maybe.
But he was a staff sergeant and a drill instructor. But he'd been a drill instructor before, and he went back to the fleet and then came back to being a drill instructor, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that
So
story.
he'd put some time in.
Yeah.
Oh, and he had a ton of hash marks on his sleeve, too.
Oh, yeah. That guy was...
Yeah, so so he had to be older than 30, easily.
But he had an understanding, compassionate side.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's seen some...
Yeah.
He's seen death before. He's probably killed people.
I have no doubt about it.
But for him to show you that empathy and sympathy when you're going, when your toughest time in boot camp, being, 20, what were you?
I was 18.
18 years old?
Yeah.
And just for that split second, you okay?
Yeah.
Let me check on you. Make sure you need some
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, that blew me away. So, yeah, boot camp was a different time. It was just it was a weird time, Could I imagine going through it now? I'd like to know what I know now.
Oh, yeah.
And be able to go through it then. With the body of my 18-year-old self. My knees aren't hurting, my shoulders aren't hurting, my elbows, my back, my wrists, nothing's hurting, right?
Guy in the back, ice the knee in the back of the neck.
Oh, you could do anything you wanted when you were 18. If I have my brain now, not that it's awesome, but compared to my 18-year-old brain.
Just imagine your mental maturity with the body of an 18-year-old going through boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
You would just fly like a jet plane through that.
Be like a Highlander.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
that's
you'll be an immortal, and I
untouchable.
can just have that brain. But I'm 18. I'm 18 forever. I can do whatever. Oh, I can jump off this freaking tower and live and still go and that's. But at 18, you thought you could.
Absolutely.
Remember the towers? We just have to go down and
Oh,
rappel and
crap! How tall were those things?
freaking yeah. And so I love that. I love doing that. That was probably the funnest. And I remember them saying when we first did it, they said, "This is as close to Disneyland as you're ever going to get." And sure enough, I thought so. I thought exactly that.
All I remember is the drill instructor pushing me, and my legs were just literally shaking like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then he got my rope, my harness, and he raised me back and said, "All right, start walking." I was just like,
you're shaking.
I was just shaking because it's going against my natural nature, what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to be going down that far. But once you got the hang of it, you got that belief. You just flew.
Yeah, I had a friend that had gone through it maybe the year before, and he was telling me about stuff. He goes, certain things, look for this, look for that. He said the thing when you do the tower, he goes, just get that arm, throw your arm out there. You have your harness, and you just throw your arm out there, and then when you throw it back behind you, you're going to stop. He goes, just the drill instructors want to see how much courage you got or whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, just throw your arm out there and leave it out there. I'm like, yeah, but we'll like just keep going. You'll keep going, but you'll stop as soon as you put it behind you. So when I took off on that thing, I just threw my arm out there. Just remember what he said. I threw my arm out there, and I real fast. He goes, keep your arm out there. Like, keep my arm out there. No, keep my arm. Okay, wait. So then I get it out there, and I'm like going for a while. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is getting great. I'm having a lot of fun, and I hit the ground. I'm like, wait a minute, can I do it again? Get over there, you're done.
I'm having too much fun.
I want to go back and do it again.
I want to ride the ride. We're in Disneyland.
Yeah. So it was. Round the minute you get your hang of it, you're done. So
I do remember the helicopter one we had to do up the helicopter thing, the rails.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was my favorite. Going forward.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I like that. I don't know why. I was like, woohoo!
Yeah, I love the entire thing. The confidence course and the whole thing, climbing those. Sliding down those ropes on your belly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at that giant angle and stuff.
The physical part was a breeze for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. It was just a piece of cake.
Me too.
Because I remember one of the drone instructors said we were one of the hardest platoons they had to try to break. Because where are you guys all from? Most of us were from Oregon.
Yeah, we had a large group from Oregon. You're right.
We're all athletes. A lot of us were athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they gave us a physical fitness test, we just blew right through it.
Yeah. I was the first person in the 40-20 club, though.
Were you?
Yep.
Oh yeah, you're the quick. Yeah,
I could do the pull-ups, I could do the running, and I could do the sit-ups, and
you just jammed them out.
Yeah. Nowadays,
I don't think I struggle with anything really. I think my biggest problem with boot camp, I think, was the academics.
Yeah.
I think I was I didn't know it, but I was dyslexic.
Oh.
I had no clue. I didn't find out until boot camp I was dyslexic.
Really?
I turned everything around.
Yeah, I look back and I say, oh, I love doing that. But I look back and say, oh, I don't want to do boot camp again. No, I do want to do. I wouldn't mind doing it right now, but, I love the Marine Corps history.
Right, a lot of history.
That was like easily my favorite part. You know, there's that. There's the physical fitness stuff. Could I do it like I could do it back then? No. I'm in okay shape.
Yeah, you're in good shape.
Don't get me wrong. I'm in okay shape.
Right.
My 18-year-old self can probably outdo me. But. Like I said, knee problems, back problems, all these different things that you get when you start getting older. But
you hit 35, you go, what the heck did I do there?
Yeah. So, what did you do after boot camp? Obviously you were in the Marines for a little while, and then you got out, and then
I got out, and then it was weird. Before the Marine Corps, I was at college, went to college, got my AA degree, and my grade just sucked. They just sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like school, but the minute I got out, they said, "Hey, just finish up, get out, go active reserve." And so I went back to school. Went back to finish a couple courses at RCC, and then I went full force into working on my bachelor's degree. And then I was working at the Oregon Youth Authority as a juvenile corrections officer there, and I did that. And then I was a reserve cop, and then I'm getting close to ending my stint at college. I was wrapping that all up, the law enforcement stuff, the correction, and I got my degree. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try something else. New season, new chapter in life. So I went into banking.
Mm-hmm.
I did banking for about 4 or 5 years, sales. And then in 2008, the crash came.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should go back into security or something. So just change it up a little bit. So I got daring. I got brave. I got wings. And I just went down into Southern California and got in the private sector security world.
And so doing that, you're for like CEOs and
right.
And people who are maybe politicians or whatever.
Right.
If somebody's coming into the area, is that right?
Yeah, most generally it's official. If it's official business with the Middle East royal family member, they have Secret Service. It's official business. State
Mm-hmm.
Department, Security Services usually handle them or Secret Service if it's official business. But typically, it would be Middle Eastern families for medical visits or vacation, and they do a little what we call the tour of the United States. They hit the Hawaii, Denver, and then Los Angeles, San Diego, take the kids, and they'd have the nannies, and you'd just babysit.
Would you follow along with them as they go to those different spots, or just when they come into the area in which you're working?
We'd follow them into different parts of the country if needed, like Hawaii, or take the private jet, go to Seattle. But most generally, you stayed there, or watched their equipment, their personal belongings at a house that they rented out in Beverly Hills.
Right.
And
While they go shopping or whatever.
Exactly.
And you're watching their gear back at their house.
Either watching the gear, because you usually have a security team watch. They call it halls and walls, and so they watch in the hallways and the doors, make sure nobody that didn't belong in there would go in the rooms and rob their stuff. I mean, usually I'd be assigned to the kiddos, just we'd be hanging out at Annie's, going to eat ice cream, going shopping, go to Disneyland. I'm like a nanny.
You're wearing a suit going to Disneyland, or did you have to?
No, you're actually wearing t-shirt and shorts sometimes, flip flops,
Oh.
tennis shoes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, or 511s.
Yeah.
Like a polo or something like that.
I guess if it was at their formal events, their gigs or whatever, that's where you're suiting it up.
Red carpet, Hollywood type stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe out of 100 times, maybe 10% of the time I wore a suit. But most of the time I'm just business casual.
Yeah, I guess every time I saw you on Facebook or on Instagram or something like that, you're in a suit. I'm like, geez, you got to wear a suit all the time, but I guess not. It just when the camera's out, yeah, you're looking professional. You're looking.
Yeah, I think there was back then we never did selfies back then.
Yeah,
and I think we do group pictures of a team together or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think
yeah, like afterwards, right?
Afterwards,
like you got the team that you all worked with.
Yeah, the team would go, hey, great job, guys! Thanks for all your work. And then the company we work for published it on Facebook.
Right, and that's probably where those are photos I was probably seeing. But then I would see every once in a while you take a picture from a balcony. Of like overlook the ocean or overlooking
some beauty.
Yeah, it was never nature. Like where you were at the job, but hey, the city that I'm in this week, here's Las Vegas. Hey, check it out. There's Encore or there's Caesars or whatever, or it'd be the Sunset in L.A. or something like that, which is but which is cool.
And that's all that.
Yeah.
You're not disclosing your location or who the client is, because most of the time you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement,
right,
and non-compete agreement, so you don't put anything on social media typically.
Right. Yeah, and I think that would be ridiculous. Obviously, if you're set to try to keep someone safe or protect somebody.
And imagine back then we didn't have Instagram.
Yeah.
Or Twitter.
Yeah, because those are. I mean, we know those. Those are just rare or regular everyday sort of things.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, that sort of stuff it's relatively still fresh. It's still babies.
Yeah.
They're 10 years old, at least in the realm of everybody using it.
Right.
Because I remember when they were first starting to try to determine what the verbiage was called that you were using when you were on Twitter. And somebody, what's the past tense of it? Well, it's a tweet. We all know it's a tweet. Back then, they didn't have a name for it. I remember when they were developing what are we calling that? What are we calling that? So
crazy how it developed over time. Mm-hmm. Now these celebrities are getting houses broken into because they know the perpetrator or the person of interest robbing their house. They know where to go because they post where they're at.
Yeah, everybody, and that's a problem. I mean, as good that some of the good that social media does,
right?
There's a negative side to it. So you have to be cognizant of what you're doing. You have to be aware that you don't just put everything out there.
Right.
You don't put your license plate out there. You don't put your address,
identifiers.
Little things that you don't think about. You don't need to let people know.
And that's a problem that a lot of high-profile clients that we protect, like CEOs and their families, they're bringing in problems with the kids. They have an extreme lifestyle because their parents are rich. And so it's natural for them to be sharing those experiences on Instagram with their friends.
Right.
They don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Right.
But now they're getting picked up, getting robbed, kidnapping, robbery.
Well, and it's just what it is on a grander scale, and it's more billboardy than what it was. You remember watching G.I. Joe when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Back in the 80s, right?
Right.
They had the PSAs at the end of the episode. And there's one PSA, and it had Roadblock.
Yeah.
He was the dude that had the orange pants and he's the black guy, and he was easily one of my favorites. Anyways, this kid picks up the phone, and the way that it rolled out, this kid picks up the phone and it says, "Hey, you want a prize? Is your mom and dad home?" "No, they're not home." "Well, can I get your address?" "Yeah." Kid gives the address over the phone, right? So he goes outside, wait for this guy, and Roadblock drives by. And he's like, "Hey, Roadblock, check it out. I just won a prize." He's like, "You did? What are you talking about?" And as Roadblock's right there, I mean, he was just this big, burly dude.
Yeah.
This guy in the car drives up and sees Roadblock. He's like, "I'm out," right? Takes off. And he's like, "You told that guy you didn't have your parents weren't home? You never tell your..." I mean, it's just that idea that you, as a kid, my mom used to always tell me, you don't tell anybody, you don't need to answer the phone if we're not home.
Right.
You don't tell anybody you're home alone. You don't go tell anybody before you get home that you're home. You're going to be home alone. You just don't need to worry about it, right? So it was that idea. Well, as a kid, I understood that. Now I get to that point where I'm doing things and I'm talking, to people. I don't need to tell anybody where I live. I can say, oh, I live here or I live there or whatever. And that's the same thing you would suggest to people on Facebook or on Instagram or Twitter or wherever. You don't put out your personal information. And it's just a safety thing, So
and you being in law enforcement, you got to be careful of that, especially in the town you live in.
Yeah, exactly. So, we do a lot of things where we don't realize what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And we have to kind of put that into perspective. And the more you grow into something, and sometimes you got to be taught, and sometimes the lesson's hard to learn.
Sometimes.
But hopefully you live through it, and you're able to say, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again, and you move on. So.
Now, graduating, when you got out of boot camp and all that and did your thing, did you know you'd have a career in law enforcement? Did you know that?
No, because shoot, I hurt my knee, got out a little earlier than my contract of the military, and I didn't get into law enforcement for another 11 years.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Probably 11 years after. I started when I was 31, and so
late bloomer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was one of those things that you got into that. My problem is like I said, I had kids. I had kids when I was 20. I was married, all this different stuff. My ex-wife wasn't overly supportive of me being a police officer, right? She didn't want, whether she didn't want to be married to one or whether she was too worried about me being hurt or something like that. Right. That was the issue, I think. I remember one time she even said, she goes, you want to wear polyester, you just go be a mailman. Well, that's not the same thing, I guess, but it's a government, you're technically a government employee or whatever, right. But that was the thing. So it took me a while to become that, but it was one of those things. I remember when I was in high school and I was talking to my stepmom at the time, and she was talking, and I could talk to my stepmom. I could always talk to my stepmom about I don't know, things were easier to talk to her about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately she passed away in 2009. So it was kind of a hard thing. Actually 2010, but I could talk to her. I could sit there and she would ask me questions. She wanted to see what I was doing with life and what. So I remember when I was a teenager, she said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with life? And I said, I guess there was a couple things. I said, I either want to be a teacher, like a school teacher and be in, like for history, or I want to be in the movies, be a movie star. Yeah, that didn't work out.
A movie star. But your daughter's following that path. Isn't she in New York?
Yeah, she's killing it.
Really? Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously with it's 2020, and so we all know how coronavirus is doing what it does. Shut everything down and whatnot. So.
Yeah, she was on a roll there before.
She was working at this jazz club, getting to know some people. She starts talking about all these people, these famous people.
Sure.
And she came home to visit, and she's like, "Oh, Steve was saying, Steve who? Steve who? Oh, Steve Smith. The Steve Smith. That's kind of a normal name." She goes, "The drummer for Journey." I'm like, oh. Okay. So, but then she would talk about all these other people that came through, that she's met, she's met Leonardo DiCaprio, she's met, Ralph Macchio, people come into her restaurants and the places that she's worked. And she's gotten to know these people. Obviously they're not hanging out on the weekends, sort of thing, but she's gotten to meet these people. And she's actually gotten at this jazz club she was working at. She got to get up on stage a couple times and show off her pipes.
She can sing.
Oh, she is. I couldn't. I don't know anybody that can hold a candle to her.
Whoa.
To be honest with you. I mean, there's famous people out there, sure. But I don't know them, I don't know personally. I mean, I know some people that can sing pretty well. But my daughter can sing really well. She went to school for what's it called? Musical theater. And so it's she just nailed it, killed it. And she's early 20s. She's got some growing to do. She's got some learning to do. overall, she's a great kid. So she's but as a kid, when I was when I was going back to my story, what I was saying was when I was in high school, I would, I was telling my stepmom, I want to be a teacher, or be a history teacher, or I want to be a movie star, or I'd like to be a police officer, be a cop. Not even thinking anything about it. And I was following the okay, well, I can't afford to go to school, and I am not smart enough to get any kind of scholarships or anything like that. So military sounds pretty good. So I'd go in the military,
Sure.
right? And that was my plan.
Yeah.
Do what I needed to do there. Obviously, other things happen. So I'm going through in my 20s, and I'm trying to talk to my wife, or my wife at the time, and I'm saying, hey, why don't you go be a mailman, all this different stuff. And I was like, that's not what I want to do.
Right.
I mean, I think I just want to drive fast and carry a gun. That's
nice.
But
that's a simple answer.
Yeah, it's a simple answer, but obviously I know there's way more to that. There's more to it. So as I'm going through things,
yeah,
life just got in the way, did some stuff. When I got to a point where after I got divorced, it was I didn't have somebody that was not supportive of it.
Right.
And I think it was just her thing. She just didn't want to. She was worried about me, either scared for me, or she was, I don't know, whatever the case was. But it got to that point where I didn't have that thing like, okay, I'm not disappointing somebody. I'm not letting them down.
Right.
Now that I'm divorced, so I'm single. I go, I test out, and sure enough, I get the job.
Congrats.
Become a copper.
Nice.
And been doing that now for darn near 14 years.
Congratulations
Yeah.
from a bad knee.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it obviously it gets me every once in a while, but overall,
I see you're all over the place driving around.
I'm able to do my job. Yeah.
I even approached you at the Grants Pass courthouse when we had the little protesting thing going on down there, and
yeah, they had some protests going on.
Working hard
and
out
like
there,
that.
and everybody's on their point. And
Yeah.
Hey, they're a devil dog. And they go, oh, this guy knows them.
Oh yeah.
I had to give a code because I know they're going to try probably
Everybody's wanting to
push
know.
me down on the ground and put cuffs on me and then ask me questions later.
No, I don't know, man. I tell you, that day we did the protests. We had
Yeah.
the protests from, it was like I said, 2020, when we had protests were going crazy all over the place.
Exactly.
Sure, it comes down to a little town, and I think I hugged more people that day than I've hugged my entire career put together. More people came up and hugged us, shook my hand.
Nice.
And I mean on both sides, of the street, because one side of the street it was all these, very everybody had a AR strapped to their back and all this different stuff. The other side was BLM and it was
right.
Everything else. But I have developed relationships with people, and I knew so many people that I was able to just go up to them and like, hey, how you doing? Like, oh my gosh, thank you for being here, and they give us hugs.
Cool.
And I think a lot of the officers I was working with did the same thing.
Wow.
So it was just really strange. So all this stuff that you see up in Portland, Seattle, or all these burning and looting and all this different stuff, which it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I'm sure there could have easily been a seed planted for that. I don't know if it didn't happen. Whatever the case was, it didn't happen here. And I was able to go up there and utilize the ability that I had of developing those relationships and showing these people, we care about you. We want you to exercise your First Amendment right. We want you to exercise that thing that I, years ago, raised my right hand and said, I will defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I said that, right?
Yeah.
And that even follows, because there's no exit to that. No. There's no expiration on that.
Right.
And, when we did that relationship is still there today. So I have to sit there and look back and be like, and that's what life is. Life is building your relationships.
Yeah.
And that's how you get things, and that's how you work through things. And, I hear people say, well, isn't that kind of manipulation? And it's not manipulation. Manipulation is, well, I guess it is. No, I'll take it back. Yeah, I think it is manipulation. But if you apply a negative meaning to it, manipulation can be bad. If you just apply what you're doing. Now, if I say, hey, I will give you $1 million if you go over there and you bust a hole through that wall. Am I manipulating you into busting a hole in that wall? No. I'm offering you something that works for your benefit. Because sure, you can find a use for $1 million, I'm sure. So you're not manipulating anybody. So as you go through, if I'm trying to work towards the mission and work towards getting the mission of making sure people are safe, making sure people are happy, making sure I can help somebody, make sure that they can be a better person, then let's work that relationship.
Absolutely.
And if I have to manipulate you to the point where you're like, oh, I get it. Okay, now, oh yeah, so I'm going to do that. Will you be mad at me if I manipulate you into doing something that's beneficial for you? And that's not to say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm killing you for your own good. That's not what I mean by it, but there's that level of, so developing relationships is the ultimate goal that we should want to do. So,
and for my viewers out there that are listening to this, I am with Ken Frownfelter, police officer with Grants Pass Police Department, and this is Mark Ledlow, host of the Fearless Mindset, and just put that plug in there.
Yeah.
Keep on rolling.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Keep on going. We got good content.
Yeah, so we're actually doing a double podcast right now.
Absolutely.
So I'm on your podcast. You're on my podcast.
Exactly.
I've got the What's a Hero podcast. You've got the Fearless Mindset podcast.
Exactly. Right.
And you're on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and all those guys, right?
All those platforms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do I know what I'm doing? No.
I don't think I like to say I don't think anybody does. There's people out there that are, you look at YouTube or you look at all these, they're like, oh, I've been doing this, I got 150,000.
A lot of those guys, the big guys that are in the millions of dollars income, they have whole teams.
Yeah.
Doing their Instagram, Twitter. I mean, they have they call advertising or media consultants that do all that for them.
Oh.
I mean, it's paid. They do content, uploads, and I'm just me doing stuff.
Yeah. Me too. I'm the What's the Hero podcast is this guy right here, and I have a team of this guy, and I have some secretaries called this guy.
There you go. Self-funded
stuff
by
like
you.
yeah. My bankrolling is, so my advertising is I have to go to work.
There you go.
That's how I advertise. That's how I make my money.
Yeah.
But. So I edit my own stuff. I go through all that stuff. And you know what? It's actually kind of cool. It's a little passion project sort of thing.
Sure.
Because as you look through and you see people doing it, and there's millions of podcasts out there.
There
I
is.
get it. And, if you want to spend time listening to ours, thank you so much. We absolutely appreciate that. And that's it. And I'd love to chit-chat with you. If you got questions for me, I'd love to answer anything you want to ask me. I mean, how tall are you? 5'6". So I'm not very. Anyways, there's all these different things that I want to, I appreciate people spending their time on listening to us and doing all these things. And as time goes, I'd like to be able to just make this thing grow and be bigger and be better. And if there's things that people say, hey, you could have done this different and you could have done that different. Oh, good to know. My ego is not so huge. I'm not.
It's a learning process.
Yeah.
When I first launched this summer, it was such a high, steep learning curve. And what I did 10% of the time was I'd watch Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I'd watch what his style was, how he did things.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came to me like, he's just being himself.
Yeah.
He's just talking.
Right.
He's two guys having a conversation at a table in a studio talking about life. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And, he's pretty smart, pretty sharp guy. You sit down, get a microphone, headset on, and just talk.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. I think what people have a problem with is they get that fear element, like the fear element we had before we go into boot camp in the Marine Corps. We're going to get killed and slaughtered. Well, the only fear you have on a podcast is, what will people think about me when I'm doing this?
Right.
If you can flip that switch off and just be you and have fun with it, don't care what your haters will say.
Yeah.
You just roll with it, tell your stories.
Yep, and that's all I want to do. I don't know how many times I've said that. I used to work in a mill, like a lumber mill. I made plywood, and I worked.
Rough.
Yeah, I did that for a long time, and I've been a logger, and I've done some hard jobs.
Yep.
And but there's a point when I'm in the mill and I'm just taking sheets of veneer and I'm putting it in the machine and waiting for it to go. There's a lot of time to think, and I'm thinking, man, I get all these little thoughts.
Ideas.
How do I get those out? I can put it on Facebook. And obviously at that point we didn't have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We didn't have any of that stuff.
Right.
But any free time that I have now, and I'm sitting there thinking of different things, I'm like, gosh, that's fantastic. That's what I want to be able to. I want to be able. How can I say this to somebody, or how do I tell this story? Where do I have that opportunity to tell this story? And I've done some public speaking over the last 3 years, specifically, and I've learned to love public speaking, and that's something that I've have a kind of passion for as well. That I want to get up there and motivate people and encourage people, and that's what I want to do with life is get in front of groups of people, encourage them and motivate them, and then get down to their level and be with people, because I'm no better than anybody else, but be right next to somebody. So if I can encourage or motivate somebody that's next to me, a brother or sister, somebody that I know, go to church with, I see in the store or whatever. Now, do I get upset, and are there people that are just jerks in life that you're just like, oh my gosh, who let this person out of their cage?
Right.
It frustrates me. However, I'll still sit back and think, okay, how can I motivate them? How can I encourage them to be a better person? And there's sometimes I'm just like, I have no idea. But other times, I'd like to be able to go say something. And there's some people you just can't walk up to and be like, hey man, I love you. And they're like, dude, get away from me. I don't know you. You're right. But with a podcast, it's cool because you can just open it up and be like, hey, here, I got some things to say. And if it works for you, great. I'm just dropping a pebble in this pond and hoping the ripples will go out and affect you in a positive way.
Yeah, good way to explain it. Perfectly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, you're very talented, not only law enforcement and Marine Corps, but that video production you guys did with Grants Pass Police Department.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, Ken was behind all that.
Oh, yeah.
You produced that.
Yeah, you can find that. It's on YouTube, on the Grants Pass Department of Public Safety YouTube page. And it's just gosh, what?
How many, did that take you guys a year to do that?
No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. You did that viral video in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Did that hit 1 million?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't remember.
I saw that thing shared so many times on Facebook, but the content and
the
music, I was like, whoa, this guy's got talent.
Yeah, I guess I'm almost, it's trepidatious to say this, right? But I was the director.
The director? Okay.
Because it was more or less my job because I was a public relations officer.
Sure.
And so they're like, hey, we need to get this done. You can do it. Okay. Because everybody else was doing it, right? Every other department across the country was doing a lip sync challenge thing. And so we get challenged, and so I go ahead and we start working out. So they're like, hey, we got to figure out how we're going to do it. Okay. I have no idea. So we hired a guy, Mr. Kennedy, Joshua Kennedy. He lives in Grants Pass. He just graduated from film school or whatever up in Portland, moves down here to open his business down here. And he comes down here and we're like, how do we do it? And he gave us a price, and it was like, okay, we can pay that. So he did all this different stuff, and he was saying, how about you do this, do this? So he did all that sort of stuff. But I was like, what I'd like to do is we're going to use these songs. I'd like to have this thing, and here we've got this. And so we brought him into our dispatch center. We brought people in on their days off.
Right.
And we choreographed dancing. And they have concerts in the park in Grants Pass in the summertime. And so we commandeered that. I got a hold of the people that were doing concerts in the park, and I said, hey, can we do this during the breaks of the band? And they're like, yeah, sure. So we got in there, and we did like 3 or 4 takes. And I told the people, I got up on stage, and I said, hey, we're going to be doing this, and you're all going to be in it. So we had drones, and we had drones of Josh Kennedy's. He got some drones in there. So he was filming this, and he had all that stuff like that. But I'm saying we want to get this here, and we're going to do it again. Let's go again. And so, yeah, and it was fun. It was fun. And I think if I could go back and do it again, I would have not so much of me in it. But I was like, I was the only one that was always there. Right. And so they're like, oh, we need another scene of something XYZ here. And we're like, well, who can do it? Well, everybody already left. Well, you're still in uniform. You do it. I'm like, oh, okay. So I, jump in the top of the rig, or I go in but if I could go back and do it, I'd take me out.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of.
You definitely have a talent.
Yeah. So it was fun.
I mean, for you to direct and do the choreography. That's a skill set that most police officers don't have.
And I still had to go be a cop. After we'd film, we'd start at like 4 a.m.
What?
Yeah, we'd do some scenes at 4 a.m. So like nighttime stuff. That wasn't at nighttime. That was in early morning.
Oh, for the sun.
It was like 3 and 4 a.m.
Oh, brutal.
And so I'd go in and work with graveyard shift or whatever and do that.
Wow.
And then I'd still have to work my shift that day and go do stuff. And
I was trying to figure out, I'm like, who the heck put this together? They must have some sort of Hollywood background. I was impressed.
No, as a kid, I watched a lot of movies.
Okay.
Watch a lot of stinking movies, and I look back and I'm like, okay, you've consumed a lot in your life. You got to start producing. You got to produce some stuff.
That was a magical.
Yeah. So
maybe you have a little bit of your daughter in you too.
Yeah. I think there's some good stuff in there. So
yeah.
But
creativity, arts of Hollywood.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be in movies and stuff like that. So maybe that's just.
Maybe you have a little bit of Clint Eastwood DNA in your blood somewhere.
Yeah.
That was a great video. I mean, that thing was shared so many times.
Yeah.
I mean, I had people looking at it in the East Coast.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it was just fun to do. It's fun to do. And I think the people that did it, too, here's the best thing that happened with it, is it developed within our department it gave some camaraderie, and it lifted some spirits because there was a time when it was just motivation and morale was just in the tanker, right?
Oh, okay.
And people just going to work, just go do my job and just leave me alone, and you get doing something fun like that, people are like, all right, I
breaks the ice,
and we have fun doing it, and so it added some morale to things, and it added some, is everything hunky dory all the time? No. That's just life. But it started some stuff, and maybe actually once again it was another pebble in the pond, But it was fun to do, and it added some morale and some team. That you always talk about the team. What are those things they do when they team building, right?
Right.
It added some of that without having to do any trust falls.
That's pretty remarkable. Team building with shooting a video. Now Ken's doing his podcast of our heroes and stories they have to share. So I'm happy to join him on this project.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was what it was, and I mean that was the lip sync challenge, and it was fun. It was fun to do, and then we've just done lots of stuff, things. I really enjoyed getting to do the public relations type stuff, and so that helps. So,
yeah, you definitely have a knack for the entertainment, the arts side of your personality. That's probably why your daughter's in New York doing what she's doing. Cause
it
your
could
DNA.
be. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean, she can sing. I can't, but I don't know. I like to think that I could. And then I had this one girl at church. She says to me, she goes, I was sitting behind the drums because I played the drums at church, and she's like, "But you're tone deaf." Oh. She's like 17, so there's no.
Very direct.
I don't care what people think. I'm 17. I'll live forever.
Yeah.
Cool. But I get it. But I think she's like, well, no, I don't mean it like that. I get it. Maybe I am tone deaf. But I was talking with my daughter, and I said, let me ask you this: can anybody learn to sing? She's like, yes, I think anybody can learn to sing.
Okay.
I said, really? I said, like, she goes, yes, I think you put the effort into it. You're not born not being able to sing. Everybody can sing. No, is it always going to be? Are you going to be like the top of the best? No. But you can learn to sing. Everybody, and if you put some time into things, and it's like anything, some people take longer to do some things than others. You take like a top athlete in the world, they have a talent, and they just build that talent, and so that's why they're the cream of the crop. You take anything else that anybody else does, they can be good at something, maybe not have a talent in it, but they work to be okay at it. So I like to think that there's a chance I could sing one day, but that means I have to put something aside that I'm doing, because I have a lot of irons in the fire. You know?
How many irons in the fire do you have?
5 or 6, but
Whoa.
They take some time.
You get bored easy.
Yeah, because I work every day. Well, not every day. I work.
You did what, 7 days straight?
This last week 7 days straight.
Whoa. 12-hour shifts? Is that what you guys do?
Yeah, we do 12s.
Okay.
You know, not every one of those days was 12. I went in, filled in for some guys that were out and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
Maybe a 7-8 hour day or 6 hour day or whatever. But so I got work. I teach karate, or I'm assistant instructor at the karate dojo I go to, and that's at the Martial Arts Training Center with Del Saito down in Grants Pass. And then let me see. I'm also I'm an elder at my church. Play drums at my church.
Okay.
So I will always practicing the drums, and you saw my drum set, so it's not too tiny. And then above that, you work out every day. You got to make sure things are on the ball.
Right.
So not just am I going to work, but I got to get up and work out before that day. So so 3:30 every morning usually.
Ooh, that's dedication. You're a dedicated Marine jarhead.
Yeah.
It never left your mind.
Yeah. And then, you got to think about, what's my downtime? Do I have downtime?
You don't have much downtime.
But I like to spend time with my wife, I like to I've got to water that plant,
You do.
She's important to me, so
grow that relationship. You got to water it.
Yeah. So, life is just what it is, so I have fun with it, and it's a good time. And you, going back to, I guess, since we're doing dual interviews, you asked me some stuff, I'm asking you some stuff.
Okay.
I recall you had a kind of a major incident here 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Something major happened in your life.
Oh, my dad's brain cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah.
I explain it to people that it's kind of like this. You have Marine Corps boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
You have Hell Week with Buzz training.
Mm-hmm.
It's in that hell.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of that was having a relationship with my dad I never had before. And I believe God gave me that time because it's weird. All of a sudden I had this business that brought me income to live on and help my dad out. And it's like God gave me this idea years ago. Mark, maybe you should have a business partner and do security contracts and have business coming in and doing security. What a great idea.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it then, but you're given that idea and that thought in your head because you're going to need to use that later down the road. You don't know that.
Right.
But all of a sudden a thought comes in your head, a seed. Well, that seed became a plant. That plant grew and produced fruit. And that fruit was business income. So I can, when I got diagnosed, it was weird. I was home from a trip. I did a business trip in LA. I came back, and I was sleeping in my sister's bedroom, and then all of a sudden I hear my sister yelling, Mark, Dad's yelling for you. I'm like, 3 in the morning? Huh? I'm disoriented to get up.
Sure.
My dad's shaking behind the recliner, standing, shaking. And I know he had congestive heart failure, but that's not congestive heart failure. So I lowered him to the ground. We put him in the recliner. I had to call the fire department at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, for lift assist and all that stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So they came over and did that. Not a problem. They're happy to do it.
Yeah.
Took 4 of them because my dad was like 350 pounds. He's huge. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? We better go to the hospital. So we take him over to Rogue Valley Medical Center because we just don't trust Three Rivers. Sorry. Nothing against Three Rivers, but they have some good-hearted people.
Well, I think that I don't know the full thing. I think they may be limited by their size and their scope too.
Right.
So
their specialties.
Yeah.
And they're a good trauma place. I'm sure Three Rivers is, but I wanted to go where the specialists were.
Sure.
So we went over there. I drove him over there, and within 20 minutes we got him in there. He was already back. I'm like, uh-oh. And then that saw the doctor, and he tells me, yeah, your dad's got a tumor in the front of his skull, frontal lobe, the size of a tennis ball or whatever it was. If you don't take it out by a week, he's going to be dead.
Jeez.
It was almost like I had 4 drill instructors jumping on me, chewing me out.
Right.
And had a 4x4 hit me upside the head.
Yeah.
My whole head was just literally spinning of all these thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this real? Is this happening to me?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Lord, now what?
Yeah, what do I do? Where do we go from here? This is uncharted territory.
Yeah, so I was like, what the heck?
So you get through that point where you're struggling with your dad and like you said, you you had a relationship with your dad. And like probably any guy that's in his 20s, 30s, it is what it is, you know. But there's a point that in your life where your relationship changes, and
that changed it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, my dad was he was a disciplinarian. He was a Vietnam Navy vet. He was also a pastor. I lived a very sheltered high school life. I didn't get to go to my dance. It was wrong. I didn't get to go to movies. It was wrong. My dad was a pastor. So it was a very strict household. He did what he thought was the best for me. And he probably saved me from a lot of grief later.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that.
I mean, he didn't stop you from the girlfriend that would smuggle candy in, but I mean,
no.
So dishonesty is not one of the safeguards he gave you, but whatever.
Yeah, I fell in love with this girl, and she broke my heart later.
Yeah.
And I never, you know, it took me a while to recover from that, but I had a lot of resentment with my dad. And, you know, what the irony and the beauty of that relationship is, as much as I resented my dad, and there's some other issues that he dealt with, that I had to come to terms with and forgive him. Once I found that key to forgive him, that lock, it was also like God just opened up this door of blessings that I didn't even see coming.
Yeah.
As a new established relationship with my dad I never had before. This didn't happen until, 46, 47.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck is this? But I had to figure out what the key of forgiveness was all about. Mm-hmm. Me being a Christian, you know, I had to deal with those bones in that closet.
Yeah.
And, you know, you as a Christian, you realize what forgiveness is and what Christ did for us on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, all right. And then when that doctor gives you that word, you're like, you're not ready for it. It hits you, and you're like, holy crap.
Right.
And all of a sudden, just this rush of feelings and emotion just collapses your whole world. And so, you know, we go through diagnosis, and we're like, okay, you have to have surgery. And we had surgery that end of that week, and open brain surgery.
Yeah.
And he had a 50-50 chance of not making it. And I remember the night morning, we went to see him. It was so comical. My dad, he laughed through anything.
Yeah.
Your life could be falling apart. He'd find some humor
He'd
out
find
of it.
Some kind of joy in it.
That was just a trick of his personality.
Yeah.
Because he went through so much pain in his young life. He was severely abused by my grandfather, who I heard was a felon, served time in prison. And to this day, my relatives say it's a miracle your dad turned out the way he did.
Really?
God's grace.
That's cool.
And so anyway, here comes the doctors with the gurney, not the gurney, but the bed to take him to surgery.
Uh-huh.
And then on the TV, I think it was Fox or something we're listening to, they're singing the Battle Hymn of the Republic. The time they rolled that bed in to pick my dad up, my dad lifts up and he goes, oh, they're singing my song. He's going for brain surgery. He may not live. And my sisters are going, bah, he's going to die.
She's blubbering, and he's over
die.
there. He's like, this is nothing.
This is great. I'm going to go to heaven, baby.
Yeah.
This is my open door to go to heaven to see my wife.
He's looking for the high
and
point.
My dad's like, he didn't care. He didn't give a crap. He's like, I'm ready to go to heaven. I might see you guys. I may not. My sisters are just losing it. They're just losing their mind.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, see you guys.
Yeah.
Death did not faze him.
Yeah.
It didn't faze him at all.
Because I think he's comfortable. I mean, from what it sounds like, he was comfortable knowing where he was going to go. He knew it was up. He's fine with that. I think for some people, the worst part is just, I'm not going to see my family, and I'm going to make them cry.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I think a lot of people. And there's that level of, hey, is there things that I'm leaving undone or whatever?
Right.
You know, but apparently not for him.
He wasn't scared. Nothing scared him.
And so I remember seeing various things you posted online or whatever, and it was just, you know, we're going into the doctors again, and we're doing this again, and
it was a yo-yo. It was an emotional roller coaster.
Right.
Because you have bad days and good days. They extracted the tumor. The doctors came back and said, yeah, you know, he may last 3 to 5 years. Okay. He went to a nursing home, the first one, Fairview, over by Albertsons, by the church.
Right.
He was there 4 months, and then he got back up and went home. He was good, and then he was good for about 2 years, 3 years, and then I took off to go work, and all of a sudden, the optic nerve, a tumor popped up by the next optic nerve, and the doctor said, we got to start treating that.
Wow.
And then we're like, oh, here we go again. I took him in. I took time off of work, and my business was supporting me, and he was like, hey, Mark, at least you get to hang out with me and have a vacation. I'm like, This is not a
This
vacation.
is a
This is a
vacation.
labor of love here.
Yeah.
This is not fun.
Actually, going to work was Disneyland, so if that was the case,
Yeah.
then you got to.
Hanging out with Dad.
Yeah.
I guess the fun part, my dad was all trying to hook me up with all these caregivers and nurses.
Oh, really?
Royal Guards. Hey, Mark, do you know your dad's trying to hook you up with everybody in this place?
You know my son's single, right?
That's what you tell him.
Yeah.
I'd be pushing him down the aisle. I kid you not, caregiver comes up. He knew everybody by name.
Yeah.
He just didn't. He had that memory. He goes, "Hey, Julie, how are you? Hey, Julie." I'd be pushing him in the wheelchair. "Are you single?" I'm like, "Oh no, here it
Yeah,
comes."
stop it.
I'm like, "God, Dad,
Yeah.
Mark, you need to get married, have some kids."
Yeah.
I'm like, and then Julie, "Are you married?" No. "Are you single?" Yeah, I'm not single. I have a boyfriend. Well, I was gonna tell you, you need to go out with my son Marker.
Yeah, well, moving on.
Oh,
No, Dad, leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Stop
yeah,
it
leave me
now.
alone.
And he thought it was the funniest thing. If people,
Oh, I bet.
Mark, you realize that your dad's trying to get you married off by
Right.
one of the caregivers here in the nursing home. Like, but he found so much humor in that. He thought that was the funniest thing. And what do? Hate him for it? I'm like, what?
No, and that's just it. Is that you can't, and that's the fun part of it. I think especially on his end, he's got to have some joy. And those
That
last,
was his joy.
he's going through pain. He's going through all this different stuff. So you can only imagine, headaches or whatever that he was having.
Yeah,
And
so it was like an emotional roller coaster. It was like up and down, up and down. That's why I explain to people that go through that. You just embrace the journey
Mm-hmm.
because there'll be a day when he's gone.
Yeah.
You know that day is coming, but live in the now.
Yeah.
Get off your phone. Get off Instagram. Get off Facebook.
Spend some time with each other.
Live your life.
Yeah.
Just be present with that person that's going through that struggle.
Yeah. And if there's nobody going through a struggle, spend some time with people.
Yeah.
Get off post your stuff online and then moving on.
Yeah.
Get your pictures taken, all this different stuff.
Yeah.
But don't stay face down and see what everything's going on. You don't need to know everything that's going on.
You don't. You're not going to change
Imagine the surprise.
it. Exactly.
Imagine the surprise when you get to see that, oh my gosh, hey, there's something else.
Yeah.
Going on. Hey, did you see that thing I posted? I didn't. Tell me about it.
Right.
Well, I'd rather show you. No, tell me.
Tell
I'd
me.
rather hear from you.
Share your story.
Yeah, exactly.
And I see what now is, everybody's so consumed with the elections, what they can't change, what they can't control. Well, control what you can control.
Yeah.
The rest of it, turn the TV off.
Yeah.
Turn off. Take the apps off your phone. Get involved in your kid's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in Zoom for school and all that. Take them out for a hike. Take them out on the river. I mean, yeah, it's wintry, but figure it out. Just,
I took my dogs for a hike today.
Yeah.
Go. There's trails everywhere. Put some clothes on. Bundle up. Whatever you got to do.
I think human beings, we make excuses to be miserable.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what we're making excuses why we should be mad and angry because the election didn't go the way we want them, or that maybe it went the way we want, so we're hating the other side.
Or we got broken up with, or we got we didn't get
people getting divorced over the elections because their spouse voted for Trump and they hate Trump, so they're going to get divorced over elections.
Yeah.
Come on, let's be adults.
Yeah. And that's just it. There's going to be times in life you're not going to get what you want.
Yeah.
Actually, there's Jordan Peterson says that
Right.
if you I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have his stuff memorized.
Right.
I'm sure he would be like, fine, don't memorize my stuff. I'm nobody. I'm not a god or anything like that. If you want to memorize something, go memorize the Bible or whatever, or some good poetry. But anyways, what he says is life is hard, and it's supposed to be hard, and life is not. It's not wonderful, and the whole idea is it's hard, and it's a tragedy. Life is tragedy. Guess how life ends?
Tragedy.
Everybody dies. Everybody dies.
Yep, they do.
It's tragic. However, there's a dark side, but that's why we have to find positive. We have to find good. We have to find how are we going to help other people? How are we going to go out and be something for somebody else? And how do we serve? And I've realized this over the past, maybe year or two. The more the joy that you get is more satisfying when you're serving somebody else than the joy you get when you're serving yourself.
So powerful.
There's more to that when you're giving for somebody else.
Right.
And as much as you say, I don't want to do that. Oh my gosh, I'd rather do something else with my Saturday or whatever. Sure, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's all said and done, how much more of a reward are you getting from having served somebody? I mean, just your own satisfaction. Be like, you know what? That was good, because now you're seeing that, once again, that pebble that you dropped, those ripples, and you see somebody's now doing something great because they were given the opportunity because you served them to do more. So just that idea. Yeah, life sucks and it's hard. But you know what? So be it.
Like now I think about my dad having passed away, looking back at it, I was more heartbroken with my mom passing away.
Uh-huh.
But now that I look at it, I'm like, what is wrong with me? I miss my dad more than my mom. And I had a close relationship with my mother.
Yeah.
But since Dad's been gone, I'm like, holy cow, what happened? And so now I'm seeing that the transition of that relationship and that desire. You wish you could, but you don't have them.
Yeah.
So those listeners out there that wish they could, if you have those relationships now in your life right now, they are alive. They're not going to be around forever.
Yeah. Go develop relationships. Exactly right. You know, and you know, my dad even told me, you know, he goes, I'd really like you to develop more relationship with your own brother. You know, my brother lives north of here, and
right.
You know, I'm like, yeah, he and I both know, my brother and I both know, we don't talk all too often.
Sure.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
But my dad, you know, he's like, I'd really like to see you guys do that. And I you know, I get it. I get it.
And sometimes you can't force the will of that person to desire or want a relationship, or create a relationship. All you can do is try. If it doesn't work out, hey, you did your best.
Right.
And you only control what you can control. And sometimes those relationships aren't going to be mended. But I guess I was lucky that I was able to forgive my dad of whatever resentment I had in my heart and get over that. And we had the best time the last 2 years that he was alive. We just had a blast.
Yeah, I mean, I saw pictures upon pictures. You'd always be posting something, and I remember most of the time there'd be like old gospel stuff that you'd be playing. Like, he's playing Dad's favorite song again, and you just see your dad going.
You get into it.
You know, yeah, his eyes are closed, and he's just like, yeah, this is the best. You know, same stuff that somebody would be listening to some, like, you know, a musician would be listening to some really good jazz. They're in the pocket, and they're just playing their hearts out, you know, and they're just boom, 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 and you get it. You're like, yes, this is like some good stuff. Your dad, he was for this gospel stuff, and I'm not a big gospel fan. You know, it is what it is, especially the older
crowd.
80s, 70s gospel.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is, and there is a following for it, and there's fans of it, and I'm not knocking it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, when I'd see the videos of your dad doing it, I'm like, he's in his pocket. He's where he wants to be now.
I think what it did for him psychologically and spiritually, it gave him that peace of mind that passes all understanding.
Yeah.
And when he got into that music, I'll Fly Away, the favorite song, you'd say that probably 100 times a week, that he knew where he was headed. And the people around him, you look in their eyes of desperation and no hope and lack of faith.
Yeah.
But Dad would belt out those songs, and people listening to him and watching him, they knew he knew.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of his, living testimony.
Right.
Of being a believer, knowing, hey, I'm going to heaven, are you? And he had witnessed to everybody he came across to. I mean, I called him the little Billy Graham.
Yeah. Honestly, what does he have to lose?
Exactly.
So
he had nothing to lose.
Nobody's going to get all mad at him and try to punch him out. You're going to punch out a guy in a wheelchair with brain cancer? Really? You're going to do that? You're going to be that guy? No. So he didn't have anything to worry about there.
No.
And you know what? He's not worrying about picking up chicks. So so that wasn't something that he had to be worried about. Oh, I'm not going to impress this girl or anything like that. Which is a lot of the reason you younger guys don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about losing friends. Hey, guess what? I'm going to lose you anyways.
Yeah.
You're going to lose me.
Yeah.
So he knew where he was going, and that's good. Good on him.
I'll never forget the guy that we called him, the guy at the cowboy hat with the cane that sat on the chair next to the admin office there in the Royal Gardens.
Yeah.
We rolled by him, and he was just bitter, angry guy. He just hated life.
Yeah.
He rolled by my dad. He goes, "When you die, Terry Ledlow, you're going to hell, you mother."
Yeah.
Upper. My dad looked at it and goes, "Well, Jesus loves you, and if you repent of your sins and trust what he did on the cross, you'll go to heaven, my friend."
Yeah.
My dad did not have a hating envious bone in his body.
Not a mean.
And that guy
spirit
just cursed him, said he's going to die and go to hell.
Yeah.
And my dad just turned around and gave him the gospel right there.
Yeah, that's funny.
I was like, and he almost got the cane. He goes, and speaking of, I'm going to beat you up with this cane. He got up and he tried to hit my dad with the cane. My dad grabbed the cane out of the guy's hand and threw it against the wall. I'm like, holy cow. And the nurses all got up. They had to break
like,
up.
oh, hey, what's going on?
What's going on?
Old man fight.
Old man fight. The guy could barely walk.
Yeah, neither one are able to walk, and they're going.
My dad just being Billy Graham to him right on the spot.
Yeah.
Like, you need to repent of your sins, or if you don't, you're going to hell anyway.
Right.
I'm like, whoa. That's like,
yeah.
I'll never forget that moment. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's cool that he was comfortable. He was solid in who he was.
He was,
and he would just do what he knew to be right. So
yeah,
that's awesome. But he ultimately passed away.
He did. Yeah, that was exhausting because I think I was you anticipate, and you have the ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like a release. It's just like all this burden on your shoulders.
All this weight just gone.
Just heavy on you. And the minute he took that last breath, I knew I could watch him have an interaction with the angels taking him or whoever he's talking to.
Yeah.
He was in like a deep sleep for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was like the last 20 minutes. He just deep sleep. And then all of a sudden, I think he was audibly listening for me and my sister to be around. And then he waited. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he has got this surge of energy. He just kind of wakes up. He just does this. He looks up. He had like a look of shock and awe on his face. His eyes were like that big around.
Right.
And he's like seeing something that was bigger than life going. He's just looking up in the wall, and I'm like, my sister was like, "Don't go, Dad, don't go." I'm like, put my arm around him. Dad, if Jesus is calling you to heaven, go, man, go. Get out of here. Go see
man.
Mom.
Yeah.
And he's like, did that, and he was like, and then he just,
and
that's dropped.
And that's when he passed away.
He passed away. I'm like, yes, he's in heaven. I was like, everybody's looking at me like, are you okay?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but you're just I think it's that surreal transformation from earth to spirit.
Right.
And when you see it happen, it's just like the weight just kind of.
When you see that, because it's not something you see every day. When you see someone pass away in front of you,
right?
You know, I've seen it. And I didn't know the person specifically. It was it was a very tragic thing that I saw. But
right.
But that's somebody you know, and you're cheering for it. And you're happy that they're becoming, they're ultimately going to where they know to go.
Right.
And
I counted like a victory. It's like what's that verse in the Bible that the head of this head of Satan, where something was crushed in victory at the cross? I forget. I can't. Paraphrasing.
No, I know it. Yeah, I don't recall myself.
But
I remember. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He had that victory, and once he took that last breath, and God called him, he just gave up. It was almost like I could watch him leaving his body right in the seconds there. He just took that last breath, and then boom, he left.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, that whole weight was just taken off. I'm like, he's not suffering now. He's perfect.
Right. And so this was a major watershed moment in your life, would you say?
Oh yeah, totally. It flipped a switch. It just gave me a new set of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Gave me a whole new value system. All my priorities changed. The way I looked at life changed.
Mm-hmm.
It just
you do things that you want to honor him with. Was that one of the things you said?
Yeah.
You know what? I need to honor my dad,
and that was where the whole idea of the fearless mindset launched. The whole podcast launch was my dad's faith to the end.
Yeah,
he was fearless to his last breath, and that's where the whole thing launched from.
That's awesome. That's really good.
And if he can be fearless in that journey, I need to be fearless in my own life.
Yeah,
but you need to be realistic about things, and naturally you have fear, but most of the time fear sets us back in making major decisions in our lives because we're fearful.
Right.
And now I'm like, when I make a decision, I go. I don't think about it. I just make that decision to move.
Right. And I think that's beneficial. A lot of people don't think of it like that. Like, okay, I'll get to it. And this podcast for me has taken me some time to get going. Mm-hmm. One, busy, but aside from that, learning how to do it.
Right.
And learning how to do it is one thing. Now that I know how to do it, I'm doing what I'm doing. I just got to put it out there. I got to just get it out and say, this is my first episode that I'm going to be releasing, and it's I've got to put it out. I've got to just go do it, and then I've got to make sure that I do it again, and then I got to do it again, because I'm hoping that people are listening, and that's what I'm assuming happened to you when you put yours out there. You're hoping there's a benefit to this. People are going to listen to it, right?
To be honest with you,
fingers crossed.
I was scared to death.
Yeah.
I was freaked out. My first one with Mike Trout, I was flipping out, sweating.
Yeah.
I was scared. But I had to get over that fear element in my head, thinking, what would Dad do? What would Dad do?
Yeah. See, that's
jump.
That's
go.
cool.
Quit holding back. And
right.
I was freaked out. What are people going to say? What are they going to think about me? I'm going to be having all these haters on social media. I'm never going to work again. All these seeds of doubt. Yeah, they flooded my mind. But I had to get through it.
But like you said, if your dad is the one that he motivates you to do this, whether he said, "Hey, I want you to go do this," or not, and I'm sure he didn't do that,
right?
Because he probably wasn't a big podcast listener. I'm assuming, right?
He loved listening to KAGO radio, KLDR. In fact, him and Carl Wilson were good friends.
Yeah.
And he listened to the radio. He loved the KAGO for the Gospel Time Hour.
Yeah.
He'd sit and listen to it. It was opposite quality hearing care. But no, he would never told me I needed to do broadcasting, radio.
Right. So he probably didn't tell you to do
never.
But obviously there's a passion that you have for it. Like, hey, I want to get out there. I want to talk to people. I want to get some ideas in there. Taking what he taught you and saying just go out and do that. And like you said, nobody goes out, and a lot of people just say, hey, I'll get to that later. There's a lot of procrastination out there. A lot of people have that procrastination. Even if they want to do something, they're really passionate about it. They'll put it off because, like you said, worried about what people think. They're worried about what people are going to say, and they're all this different stuff. The frustrating thing that we have to overcome, I think, our worst hater, our worst person,
our own worst enemy
is yourself.
Exactly.
Absolutely, you're your own problem.
Yeah,
get out of your own way is the bottom line. What we got to say. So. But we've been cranking this out for about an hour and a half now. This is probably the longest podcast you've got.
This is, getting up there with Joe Rogan here.
Well, we haven't quite reached the Jocko numbers. He's like at 3-some hours usually. So,
wow.
But that's okay. That's cool. You know what? I don't have a problem with that. What I'd like to do is have you come back at another time.
We'll have to do another episode.
We do this again because there's so many more things we can talk about.
Oh, yeah. We're just getting on a roll.
Getting
warmed up.
So, if you're out there, you're listening to us, if there's anything that I can say that would encourage you or motivate you, let it be that you can do so much more than you maybe give your own self credit for. Don't listen to people that hate. Don't listen to people that talk trash. All that stuff. You're gonna trip. You're gonna fall. You're gonna put egg on your face. You're gonna be a failure. Absolutely. Guaranteed. And, that's motivating, Ken? Yeah, it's motivating because you know what? How many times, every case that gets taken and wins at the Supreme Court, the United States Federal Supreme Court, had to be a loser first.
True.
Every single one.
Great point.
And if they won or they lose or whatever, every winner at the Supreme Court has been a loser before.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter. You have to fail in life. Life is failure. There's lots of it. And you're going to have that one time you succeed. Boom. And you get the job. Boom. You marry the girl or you marry the guy. Boom. You have this epiphany to do what you've always wanted to do. Know that there are people out there that are fighting for your right to do that, your ability to do that, to be who you want to be with life.
Yeah.
And if you can go forward and be better and then share that. Like I've said a couple times, drop that pebble because those ripples that are going to come out are going to be something that's so much more that are going to help somebody else out.
Yeah, your story can impact 1 to 1,000 to 10,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just take that word of hope. Because right now, a lot of people need hope right now with everything going on.
Absolutely. So Mark, we can find you where again?
You can find me on Mark Ledlow on YouTube, my YouTube channel. You can find me at Instagram, Mark David Ledlow, or at Mark David Ledlow on Instagram, and Facebook, Mark David.
And I am, there's a What's a Hero podcast on Facebook. There is, we've got my Instagram, Ken Frownfelter, and on Twitter, Ken Frownfelter as well. But until next time.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Go ahead.
The fearlessmindsetpodcast.com.
fearlessmindsetpodcast.com.
Yeah, I forgot. Totally spaced it.
Yeah, don't space it, everybody. fearlessmindsetpodcast.com.
Rock
So
and roll.
until then, this has been Mark Ledlow. I've been Ken Frownfelter. And let's do some good with life.
Thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.